Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly rise as we welcome His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Vice Chair, Excellency the President of Ghana, Special Advisor, Nimoy Thompson, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Obake, Wizo, Kwav, Arab, welcome the College of Physicians and Surgeons for the launch of the Ghana Infrastructure Plan. Our theme is the GIP Foundation of Ghana's Long-Term National. My name is Kafke, and for the welcome remarks, let's welcome the Acting Director General of the National Development Planning Commission. Let's welcome Dr. Audrey Smock Amor with a big round of applause. Ghana, we'd like to hear the clapping until the speaker starts speaking.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President John Dramani Mahama, Nime Kename, Nanano, Honorable Ministers of State, Honorable Members of Parliament, Honorable Metropolitan, Municipal, and Executives, Commissioners, and staff of the National Development Planning Commission, representatives of political parties, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of ministry departments and public institutions, development partners, private sector organizations, guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great honor and privilege on behalf of the National Development Planning Commission to welcome you all to this landmark occasion. The official launch to as the 40-year. The preparation of the Ghana Infrastructure Plan was undertaken by the National Development Planning Commission as a core component of this broader framework. The process began in 2015 and was grounded in the National Spatial Development Framework 2015, the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, and extensive national consultation reflecting citizens' aspirations. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan development process followed an integrated, evidence-based, and participatory approach. It began with a comprehensive assessment of existing infrastructure across the sectors: energy, transport, water and sanitation, housing, ICT, among others, to establish baseline conditions and challenges. Sectoral data were analyzed, forecast future infrastructure demands within a 30-year planning horizon. Strategies and investment priorities were identified to support economic transformation, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. The process emphasized coordination across government agencies and alignment with global and continental commitments, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, and the Africa Union Agenda 2063. Stakeholder consultations, expert reviews, and validation workshops were conducted to ensure coherence and national ownership. Key stakeholders involved included the National Development Planning Commission as the lead institution, sector ministries such as energy, roads and highways, water resources, environment and finance, as well as decentralized departments and local authorities. Other critical partners were the Ghana Statistical Service, Forestry Commission, Environmental Protection Agency, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, research and academic institutions such as KNUST, CSIR, and ISE, professional bodies, sector entities, civil society organizations, development partners, and traditional authorities. Together, these actors contributed data, technical expertise, and policy inputs that shaped the GIP into a comprehensive 30-year framework for coordinated, inclusive, and sustainable infrastructure development in Ghana. This launch is therefore a critical step in aligning our ambitions with actions, national commitment to coordinated infrastructure development that anticipate future needs, integrate long-term planning, and serves as the backbone of inclusive and sustainable growth. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan reminds us that building a prosperous nation is not the duty of government alone. It is the responsibility of all who share in Ghana's dream. Real progress happens when leadership is shared, ideas are united, and partnerships are purposeful. From public institutions and private investors to universities, civil society, and development partners, every hand and every mind has a role to play. No government, however committed, can build a nation alone. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan challenges us to work as one system, public and private, national and local, technical and civic, bound by a single vision of progress. It is through such unity of effort that infrastructure ceases to be projects on paper and becomes the living framework of national transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ghana Infrastructure Plan is a statement of purpose. It is our ability to plan, to build, and to deliver. Your Excellency, the National Development Planning Commission stands ready to ensure that this plan informs every medium-term development framework, every public investment program, and every special development plan across our regions and our districts. Implementation must be underpinned by transparency, monitoring, and accountability, ensuring that the plan remains a living instrument that adapts and endures. As we begin today's proceedings, may this launch symbolize the beginning of a renewed era of vision, continuity, and courage in national development. On behalf of the National Development Planning Commission, I once again welcome you all to this defining moment. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Audrey Smock Amua, Acting Director General of the NDPC, for your welcome remarks. And talking of NDPC, we are live on Facebook, so you can go and follow us if you aren't following us already, and send a link to your friends to let them know that this is where you are, and on GTV as well. We'll now take a statement from the Ministry of Finance, and it will be presented by Deputy Minister of Finance and MP for Sujaman in the Eastern Region. Let's welcome Honorable Thomas Nyako Ampem.
Your Excellency, President Dramani Mahama, the Acting Chief Justice, our service commanders, ministers of state, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you warm greetings from my boss, the Honorable Minister for Finance, Dr. Kasil Atoforsen, on whose behalf I stand here today. As a ministry, we feel honored to stand in solidarity with the National Development Planning Commission for the launch of the Ghana Infrastructure Plan, a milestone that marks a decisive step towards transforming our nation's infrastructure landscape and accelerating Ghana's journey towards sustainable, inclusive growth. We congratulate the NDC for delivering this critical framework, one that will guide our efforts to reset and build Ghana's infrastructure for generations. On 20th May 2025, when His Excellency President Mahama inaugurated of the 8th National Development Planning Commission, he underscored the importance of a unified, long-term plan that transcends political cycles. Today's occasion gives concrete meaning to that clarion call. The long-term Ghana Infrastructure Plan being launched is a direct manifestation of the President's transformative agenda, an agenda that views infrastructure as connectivity, opportunity, and dignity for our people. With this plan, the future of Ghana's infrastructure is hopeful and brighter. Improving macroeconomic situation provides a platform from which to foster and fund a big push for infrastructure instead of the usual piecemeal efforts. From the perspective of the Ministry of Finance, the link between quality infrastructure and national prosperity is indisputable. Infrastructure investment stimulates short-term growth and lays the foundation for long-term development. According to the World Bank's Global Infrastructure Hub, every cedi invested in infrastructure can generate a fiscal multiplier of 0.8 within a year and 1.5 over 2 to 5 years. Yet, historically, Ghana has underinvested in this vital sector, leading to critical deficits that constrain economic potential. Our resource envelope has been squeezed by the impact of macroeconomic instability and reduced access to external capital markets. Meanwhile, demographic changes, including rapid urbanization and a growing youth population, have intensified demand for modern infrastructure. By 2050, Ghana's population is projected to reach 50.2 million people, up from 19.6 million in the year 2000. Over 10 million young people will enter the labor market between now and 2040. These trends demand bold, strategic, and sustained investment in transport, energy, digitalization, agricultural infrastructure, and others. To meet our most pressing infrastructure needs and catch up with our peers in the world, we need to increase our infrastructure assets in key areas. Expanding our infrastructure and addressing the infrastructure deficit requires a deliberate, integrated, and long-term approach that aligns national priorities with constrained resources. This Ghana infrastructure plan does just that, providing clear answers to fundamental questions such as what type of infrastructure do we need? Where are these investments most required? How can we integrate infrastructure systems to maximize efficiency? How much will they cost? And how do we sustainably finance them? The Ministry of Finance warmly welcomes the Ghana Infrastructure Plan. Our next focus must be on fulfilling three critical imperatives: collaborating financing, effective coordination, and strategic communication. And I can confirm that the Ministry of Finance stands ready to co-lead in all fronts. Infrastructure financing is a foremost priority of President Mahama's government. We are therefore focused on fostering a balanced mix of financing from both public and private sources. From the public sector space this year, under the Big Push initiative, we have allocated 13.9 billion cedis, part of a $10 billion medium-term programmed financing sourced through reallocated petroleum revenues and mineral royalties. This is aside the normal CAPEX allocations to MDAs. And there is every indication, in fact, we are under directives to ensure that we more than double the allocation for the Big Push in 2026. We are also strengthening the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, GIF, to serve as a key vehicle for blended financing, viability gap funding, as well as to leverage equity and attract development finance institutions and private investments. Given the fiscal constraints, public-private partnerships are indispensable. We are therefore seeking to roll out a reformed PPP framework that ensures infrastructure projects are bankable, transparent, and fiscally sustainable. Private sector participation will certainly reposition us to address the significant but hidden or unplanned costs of operating and maintaining infrastructure in the post-construction phase. This Ghana Infrastructure Plan public financial management reforms. Our resolve is further strengthened in the knowledge that achieving expenditure efficiency and value for money, especially in energy and the road sectors, will create fiscal space to implement this plan. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan will also enhance coordination, a challenge that has too often plagued infrastructure delivery. Through this plan, we can avoid the inefficiencies of disjointed investments. For example, infrastructure built outside budget systems or without integration linkages, leading to costly delays. Such inefficiency is no longer excusable. Ladies and gentlemen, far too often Ghanaians have denounced abandoned infrastructure following changes in government. This long-term plan has a strong potential to respond to this cry and address that systemic inefficiency. we are in a better position to ensure continuity, even in change, for this plan. Thank you, Mr. President and NDPC, for boldly responding to this call. That is why the Ministry of Finance intends to also work closely with NDPC and Parliament to institutionalize a mechanism for ensuring that all publicly funded or PPP-supported projects align fully and completely with this plan and ensure continuity of project, even when there is change in government. This plan is an articulation of the grand vision which needs to be effectively communicated to its intended beneficiaries. Beyond today, the Ministry of Finance commits to work with NDPC and related agencies to undertake targeted strategic investment engagements with key stakeholders. This will secure not only popular political or policy acceptance across broad stakeholders, but it will also underpin our collective efforts to entice private sector partnerships for the implementation of the plan. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, under the leadership of President Mahama, we are witnessing a renewed national focus on sustainable, people-centered infrastructure, the kind that expands opportunity, enhances productivity, and bridges inequality. With macroeconomic stability in sight, thanks to the bold reforms and initiatives implemented this year, the Ministry of Finance is eager to work with the NDPC and others to sustain our focus on long-term infrastructure development. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan will respond to the timeless wisdom: by failing to plan, you are planning to fail. Today, by launching this plan, we have escaped that first trap. But we must be reminded that a brilliant plan will not succeed unless it is executed effectively. That is now our collective responsibility. The Ministry of Finance stands ready to co-lead the execution. Together, let us join hands to build a modern infrastructure that enhances connectivity and trade. Let us join hands together to improve quality of life through access to essential services. And let us join hands together to position Ghana as a hub for sustainable investment in Africa through infrastructure development. These are the pillars of Ghana's economic transformation. We commend you, the NDPC, for your leadership and vision, and we thank His Excellency President Mahama for his foresight and enduring commitment to building our nation. May God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Thomas Nyako-Ampem, Deputy Finance Minister, for your statement from the Ministry of Finance. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you a movie. Sadly, there'll be no popcorn or hot dogs, but at the end, I'm sure we'll be clapping. So this is of the Ghana Infrastructure Plan. Enjoy.
Of Guinea. With a population of 30 million people, it is projected that Ghana's population will rise to 57 million by its centenary year of 2057. Since independence, Ghana has progressively made strides in modernizing and expanding its infrastructure stock, including roads, telecommunications, and ports. However, these investments have not spared the desired industrial growth and economic transformation, as services such as water, sanitation, and electricity still lag behind for citizens and industry. Presently, the country has a transportation system dominated by road transport, limited rail coverage that serves only the southern part of the country, one international airport, and 2 large deep water ports. Despite the rapid growth in electricity demand, much of the existing energy infrastructure is now old, inefficient, and in need of replacement. Clean energy has remained underdeveloped, undermining productivity and derailing economic transformation. Water, sanitation, and sewage systems have also come under increasing pressure because of the population growth. Certainly, these deficits need to be reversed quickly to set the country on track towards the transformation agenda as outlined in the vision of the Ghana at 100 policy framework. The National Development Planning Commission launched the Ghana Infrastructure Plan in 2018. The plan encapsulates Ghana's long-term vision and strategic direction for infrastructure development within a 30-year planning horizon. It provides a coordinated and integrated approach to infrastructure planning, prioritization, funding, and delivery by engaging with stakeholders across the private sector, industry, and communities. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan envisages that by 2047, the country would attain the status of a high-income economy with an industrialized, diversified, export-oriented, and resilient economy that is very competitive against other players in the global economy. To support Ghana's plan to industrialize and to transit into a mature economy, Ghana will operate a liberalized energy market in which the private sector finances and develops most infrastructure. The government is taking actions to diversify energy sources whilst ensuring access to affordable, clean, and efficient energy supply to safeguard future economic security. To ensure security of electricity supply, new hydroelectric and thermal power plants, including the Pualugu and Jubilee projects, will be completed. Solar power generation will be expanded, and new sources from coal, nuclear, and biomass will become important contributors. By 2047, a total of 50,000 megawatts of power will be available to drive industrial development and enhance livelihood opportunities for citizens. This will be composed of increased contributions from new energy sources, such as nuclear and renewables, as well as old ones such as petroleum. A reliable and high-performing road network helps to improve productivity. The government is committed to addressing the challenges of the road transport sector by building a better and smarter road network that drives growth. Ghana's current road network of 78,000 kilometers will increase to 253,000 kilometers by 2047, including an ambitious resurfacing program. A $272 billion investment will be required to achieve this target. The government is committed to delivering the bus rapid transit system to increase use of public transportation in major urban areas. Additional bus routes created to connect major cities. Intelligent transportation systems and electric vehicles will be introduced across the country as part of the mass transport system. This will improve road safety, reduce traffic, and accidents by 90%. The vision of the aviation sector is to position Ghana as the preferred aviation hub for business in West Africa. The Kotoka International Airport has recently been expanded to make it one of the best connected countries in the world. The Tamale and Kumasi airports, being upgraded to the status of international airports, will be completed to open up opportunities and connections to Ghana. Smaller airports, such as the Sunyani and Takoradi airports, expanded to handle current and future capacity requirements, including emergency, medical, and tourism purposes. The vision of the maritime sector is to provide an efficient, reliable, multimodal transport and contribute to enhance regional economic development within a safe, affordable, and sustainable environment. There's been a significant investment activity at Tema and Takoradi ports of over $3 billion to support current and future freight movements. Port Development Program will reposition Tema as the leading container hub, the ECOWAS region, and Takoradi as the dominant oil and gas services hub. Ghana Infrastructure Plan seeks to encourage inland transport that will cater for long-term growth in import and export trade by sea and to support domestic freight movements. This will involve the completion of the Buankra Inland Port on a 400-acre parcel of land in the Ashanti region to support trade with other landlocked countries and the development of the Buipe and Akosombo ports to facilitate inland transport. Rail transport currently forms less than 1% of Ghana's transportation modal mix for passenger transport and 3% for freight. Over the next 30 years, a $26 billion network rail enhancement program will increase Ghana's rail network from 907 kilometers to 4,007 kilometers across the entire country. The construction of the 84-kilometer railway line connecting Tema and Akosombo is ongoing. Other key priority rail projects also include the Trans-ECOWAS line and the Accra-Ouagadougou line. Towards Ghana's vision for a sustainable transport system, a well-timed metro rail system will be implemented in Accra, Tamale, and Sekita. This will improve transport and intercity Ghana business city. Over 35% of Ghana's population, including businesses, are subscribed for fast broadband. Over the next 3 decades, to drive improved governance, enhance competitiveness, and social development. National internet penetration is expected to double by 2047, as the government plans to invest $2.6 million to improve fiber optic connectivity across the country. Public places such as hospitals, schools, public parks, and business operating centers, including government services, will have access to ultra-fast broadband services. A well-functioning housing market is linked to the wider health of the economy. However, for decades, housing supply has not kept pace with the increasing demand from the growing population. Government is committed to increasing housing supply through infrastructure investments, urban regeneration programs, as well as new residential developments. Plans are underway to launch the National Urban Regeneration Program to breathe life
shops, restaurants, a world-class sports medicine and research facility, and a National Sports Museum. The stadium will be linked by road and rail as part of the National Rail and Highways network that will go through all 10 regional capitals. The Black Star Stadium is expected to attract millions of tourists every year from within and outside Ghana. It will provide thousands of jobs directly and indirectly to the youth of Ghana. The future of Ghana. Dream it, plan it, live it. Brought to you.
I said one video, I got you two. So, and that applause did count. So, clap yourself again. That was good. Oh, I want to go to that stadium. When, where? I'm sure the answers will be here, will be hinted here. Because next we have a presentation on infrastructure, economic growth, and national development, the Ghanaian experience, and the way forward. Our speaker is chairman of the NDPC and senior advisor to the president on the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's welcome Dr. Nimoy Thompson. We're live on GTV, on free to air, and also on Facebook. On Facebook, we're live on NDPC's channel as well. And this is the launch of Ghana Infrastructure Plan. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. President, Chief Justice, Leader of Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, the leadership and members of the Parliamentary Committee on the Economy and Development, heads of various state agencies, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on behalf of the members and staff of the National Development Planning Commission. Development, they say, is history. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of history. Mr. President, in 1965, the government of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah launched what was the first ever infrastructure, fiscal, and industrial development plan for Ghana. It was also the first in Africa. Among other things, the plan aimed to extend the Temamoto Way to Paga in the north through Kumasi by 1970. It also sought to modernize our cities and towns and ensure that industrial activities were spread equitably across the country. This, he envisioned, will be the foundation of Ghana's economic transformation, which began in 1955 under his leadership with the Industrial Development Corporation. Unfortunately, the infrastructure plan was abandoned after the 1966 coup, along with the famous 7-year development plan that it was to support. And thus began a decades-long decline in infrastructure, human settlements planning, and indeed the Ghanaian economy itself. In 1962, for example, Ghana's per capita income was 73% higher than that of South Korea. Today, it is 95% lower than that of South Korea. In fact, South Korea now gives us foreign aid, and about half of our technical staff were in fact trained in South Korea as a result of that aid. And not surprisingly, we are at the IMF as I speak for the 17th time since 1966. To paraphrase the American rapper J. Cole, we've come a long way, but we went the wrong way. In 2015, Mr. President, under your leadership, the Commission began putting together the Ghana Infrastructure Plan as part of the preparation of Ghana's long-term national development plan, which popularly came to be known as the 40-year National Development Plan. The name 40-year Development Plan doesn't appear anywhere in the document. And I remember being worried that Ghanaians were going to oppose that. So I actually went to Professor Botwe, who was then the chairman, and I said, Chairman, we need to launch a kind of a counter campaign to reverse that. He said, no, Nimoy, Ghanaians must get used to long-term planning. And so it stuck. Both were meant to guide development policies of successive governments through medium-term and annual action plans, creating and building the kind of prosperous and equitable society that Kwame Nkrumah envisioned for us. For a myriad of reasons, neither plan was implemented in any meaningful way And here we are 10 years later, seeking to pick up the pieces. Mr. President, when you inaugurated the current commission earlier this year, you re-echoed public demands for a new long-term national development plan, including all the plans by the previous government that will be flexible enough to guide the preparation of political parties' manifestos, but also strategic enough to keep our eyes on the higher objectives of development, such as the eradication of poverty and the fostering of a just and prosperous society. It is significant that you have been summoned, Mr. President, by fate and history to join us today to finish the work that you started a decade ago. I congratulate you, Mr. President. The launching of the infrastructure plan today is the first step, as we've heard already, towards the process of preparing what will be a composite long-term plan that would include a systematic review and incorporation of not just the 40-year development plan, which was prepared under the NDC government, but also Ghana Beyond Aid, Ghana at 100, and the long-term National Development Perspective Framework, all of which were prepared by the MPP government. By the end of 2026, we expect to have a composite long-term national development plan called Ghana Vision 2057, a roadmap to economic transformation and shared prosperity. Now, I know some of you are wondering why we need a long-term development plan in the first place when we have failed in our most previous attempt. Well, we need it because without that, we are not going anywhere. We may make some progress in there, but it will be likely to fall below what we actually can do with long-term national development planning. And our development challenges will just build up. An example is what Japan did when they talked about doubling their economy every 10 years as part of their perspective plan. In the end, they actually doubled it every 7 years. That's because long-term plans help you to mobilize resources in the population behind you. Long-term planning, again, provides strategic path to growth and prosperity. For example, we all talk about the 24-hour economy, but the 24-hour economy was originally part of the long-term national development plan, the 40-year national development plan, even though it's been implemented 8 years late. But as they say, better late than never. It's to give you an idea that having a long-term plan does not preclude the implementation of certain programs in the short term. In its original formulation, in fact, the 24-hour economy included 4 shifts, not 3, 4, where in certain strategic industries, we're going to encourage 6-hour shifts where productivity will go up, and what is ordinarily produced in 8 hours will then be produced in 6 hours. Imagine the number of well-paying jobs, therefore, that would have been created by now if we had started earlier. Every serious country I know of has a long-term plan, even if we haven't heard of it. The United States, for example, has one of the most dynamic labor markets and one of the lowest unemployment rates among its peers. This didn't happen by accident. The United States, that is, has a 100-year strategy for creating jobs, starting from 1950 to 2050, and it is backed by an Employment Act researched by the Council of Economic Advisors, which is the US equivalent of NDPC, and the designation of, quote, maximum employment as the primary objective of monetary policy, followed by price stability and moderate long-term interest rate. We failed because of misunderstanding that a long-term plan has nothing to do with the present, that we should worry about today and let the future take care of itself. Some even said that, well, in 40 years, we'd all be dead, forgetting that our children are going to be here. And that's the most selfish way of looking at it, that because we'll be dead, we shouldn't worry about our children. Whatever we do today must be a reflection of the future. I've mentioned the 24-hour economy, but there is more. Under the 40-year National Development Plan, for example, we projected that Ghana would need 20.2 million rooms between 2018 and 2057 to be able to provide adequate and decent housing for the population over the period. In order to do this, we estimated that we would need at least the following: 526 million tons of cement, 64 million tons of iron rods, 212 million square meters of wood, and 1 billion square meters of sand at the very minimum. This was a signal for the government and private sector to begin working together immediately starting in 2018 to build the necessary factories that will produce these construction materials. Would have created hundreds of thousands of jobs by now. Others included, I'm just going to go through it because of lack of time, the SADA master plan. People used to think that it was only for the northern, the three northern regions back then, but it was for the entire northern half, second half of the country. And it came with a SADA development bank. And from our projections, at this height, within 10 to 15 years, we will see a situation where young people would graduate from high school or universities, from Cape Coast, Accra, Lomé, Togo, Aflao, and then move up north for employment. Growth Ring Corridor, WAGRIC, which was going to link Abidjan, Accra, Lomé, and Ouagadougou, and then go from Accra through Kumasi to Burkina Faso, what is known as the corridor development. They had the Japanese government's support at the time. The presenter mentioned light rail systems for Accra, Kumasi, Sekondi, Takoradi. We had the Bupe City Structure Plan. We had the National Spatial Development Framework, which gave us the establishment of LUSPA, Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority. Their representatives are here. The Greater Kumasi Master Plan, which would have seen at least 2 Japanese automobile assembly plants in Kumasi, Tamale City Structure Plans, the Employment Act, Future of Work Strategy, a competition law, and also consumer protection law. We propose that these 2 critical laws for industrialization and development have been under development for nearly 20 years. And I remember my friend Spio Gabra saying at one point that one of our biggest challenges to development is a lack of a sense of urgency. And this is it. How could you have such critical laws? Without a competition law, you really cannot have industrialization. And yet it's been there. And if we had a consumer protection law, all the time we spent chasing DSTV would have been spent doing something more strategic. And then the Petition Commission would have dealt with DSTV. So we have all these things there. Strategy for the transformation of the informal sector. We are not going anywhere without the transformation of the informal sector, which accounts for between 80 and 90% of, but only 27% of GDP, because the value addition there is so low. As they say, so much business and so little value addition. The Ghana Stock Exchange, we thought, and I listened to the president's speech at the UN when he passionately advocated for more stake in our economies. And I thought it was significant in the sense of history, because in 1951, the Economic Survey for Ghana made exactly the same point, that we didn't have enough stake in there. So the Ghana Stock Exchange would be a major source. Ghana Industrialization Strategy. We proposed a Manufacturing Advisory Council made up of Ghanaian industrialists at home and abroad, so that we can tap into international experience. Exports Advisory Council, agriculture, and then perhaps one of the most famous, based on popular request, is what we call the Good Society Campaign, because that will happen. The important point is that everything I've listed had timelines of 2018, 2021, and 2025. They were not meant to be completed in 40 years. They were meant to lay the foundation for what was to happen. Now, I've touched enough of that, but given the centrality of the commission and given the limited knowledge the public seems to have, I'll quickly go over what the commission is and what it does, so that we know. The commission's mandate includes advising the president on development planning, policy, and strategy. And at the request of the Parliament, it's also supposed to undertake macroeconomic and structural analyses. Thereafter, it allows the government to implement policy. The commission does not implement policy. It helps government formulate policy, the government implements, and then the commission monitors and evaluates the work of this is the responsibility of the government based on its electoral mandate. For commissioners, the president appoints people he believes share his vision based on his electoral mandate. There is also institutional representation from bodies like the Association of Ghana Industries, Ghana Employers Association, Organized Labor, and the Ghana Institution of Planning. Those who may not have or share in the president's vision are nevertheless not left out, but have something to say. They can always do that through what we call the cross-sectoral planning groups. The commission, I must point out, because folks keep saying that, commission is not a board or an advisory council. It is, in fact, a working commission with a full-time chairman who has an office there and works together with the various subcommittees that are set up. So it's quite a very busy commission. And I'm happy and I must congratulate the members of the commissioners and the staff for the hard work they put in the preparation of the president's coordinated economic and social development program. Now, as I speak, these are the 9 committees that work to support the work of the commission and ultimately advise the president: economic policy, social development policy, energy and private sector development, transport and logistics. And this is critical. We thought this is so critical to the success of the 24-hour economy, because it's not enough to build roads, but how quickly you get things from one point to the other is equally important. And that's where the logistics issue comes in. The last study that was conducted found that the average speed of a cargo truck in Ghana was only 18 miles per hour. This was about 10, 15 years ago. It's probably gone lower, where the recommended minimum is 55 miles per hour. So that we have a whole subcommittee to look at that. Agriculture and natural resources, employment, productivity and earnings, governance and public sector reforms, environment, infrastructure, spatial development, and finally, international relations. Given what is going on in the United States now and the disruptions in the global economy, we cannot afford to have a national development plan that doesn't look at our position in the global economy and how we respond to these things. Now, let me quickly get to the issue of the relationship between Australia and economic growth. We often assume that there's a positive relationship, that as long as you keep spending on infrastructure, the economy is going to grow. But that relationship, and I remember once having a discussion with Professor Botre, which, as we all know, was the longest serving Minister of Finance in Ghana. And he told me that, one day, there was a time when there was a lot of complaints with Bank of Ghana, we agreed that we'll work together to be able to analyze credit data, not just on sector, but on regional and district basis. And of course, my brother from the Ministry of Finance mentioned how closely we've been working. GMPC has been very supportive. And because we are emphasizing employment creation as perhaps the single most important indicator of government progress, we've begun the process of training labor economists. Believe it or not, 20 years ago, when my friend Joe Ada was Minister for Labor, 20 years ago, he said that there was no labor economist at the ministry, 20 years ago. Just a few weeks ago, I verified, and we still do not have a labor economist at the Ministry for Labor. And during the time I was talking to Joe Ada, he looked back about 10 years, and we still, so it looks like, apart from the first core of labor economists that Kwame Nkrumah trained, we've never really had labor economists. And everyone keeps saying, vote for me, I'll create jobs. And yet we don't even know where the jobs are. Unemployment, there are different types of unemployment, for example. And unless you understand that, you'll never be able to deal with unemployment. We have geographical unemployment where the jobs are here and the people are here, but they can't get there because of public transportation. That is different from skills-based unemployment. So we are looking at that. We are looking at expenditure-based GDP approach. Employment creation, we decided to calculate something called the absorption rate. So we continue to look at the unemployment rate, but the absorption rate for us is the most important indicator because it tells us that the economy's ability to absorb the growing labor force. And we are lucky to have Professor Bambuatin as a member of the commission. Wage growth is our single biggest indicator, and also productivity. During the elections, the president used just 4 words that I think one of the biggest theories or thesis in development. He said, the economy must work efficiently. Now, it sounds simple, but it's actually a simple way of stating what economists call multi-factor productivity. And that's what sets the rich countries apart from the poor countries. And so productivity development, we've started discussions with MDPI, and we are going to work on that. Strengthening macroeconomic modeling, we need to know if the CD depreciates 1%, what is the implications for exports, imports, and so forth. Local economic development I talked about. We are also, Professor, we've begun laying the groundwork for what is known as district diplomacy. We know very little about what is happening in the districts, and so time has come for us to dive into that and use that information to advise the president, share with the Ministry of Finance and other areas. And this is very critical. If you look at the most recent data on foreign direct investment, almost all of it is based in Greater Accra, 86%. It used to be 80%. It's now gone to 86% of foreign direct investment in Greater Accra. And mind you, Greater Accra is also the smallest land area in the country, just 1.4% of the total land area. And you are putting 86% of your FDI here. That means you have population pressures, which means you have over 1,680 persons per square meter in Greater Accra compared to a national average of just 102. So massive disparity. And as a result of that, Accra City alone accounts for about 40% of our GDP. This is simply not a sustainable model for national development, and we're going to be working on that to reverse it. Transparency and accountability. The ministry, we are already working, and I'm so happy. Unfortunately, Atu is not here, but I'm sure his deputy will take the credit for that. Atu has really drawn the line as to how ministries should behave in order for them to be responsible, transparent, and efficient in the utilization of scarce resources. So, for example, he's made it clear, besides amending the Public Financial Management Act, he's made it clear with the support of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah. I need to give him credit, I'm not sure he's here, but he actually made a statement in Parliament, a private member's bill, that no plan, no cash. So no, from now on, any ministry that goes to the Minister of Finance looking for money to spend must first present its plan verified and certified by NDPC before they get a PESWA. And this is really revolutionary. I took crack the whip. And then to make it even worse, he tightened the screw a little bit and he said, you cry, if you don't submit your plan this year, your third quarter locations, I won't even give it to you. So then they come running, giddy, giddy, giddy. So NDPC, we have to work overtime. Some of them are working till 2 a.m. just to help these ministries to to meet there. So we begun that, and this is serious because if you look, we recently launched the annual progress report 2022. It's the first time that we've actually launched it publicly so that the public also understand how government performs. And I'm holding in my hands here, I think 11 or 13 different ministries and departments and agencies, and it's on our website, so I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, that refused to present their annual progress reports, to tell Ghanaians how they spend the money they were given. They just refused to do that. And oh, it's here. All right. Where's the, so here they are. Where's the pointer? What disturbs me the most is that two of the biggest spenders of our monies, Minister of Health and Minister of Education, did not present. Between them, they account for over 51% of the government's wage bill. And they didn't present anything. And then you turn on television and watch PAC, and you hear that Tamale Hospital was paying a dead person for 26 months, and at the same time complaining that they didn't have ventilators. Oh, they attended his funeral. They attended his funeral, okay. So the president said they attended his funeral. There are quite a few other things that we'll also do. Civic auditing, we are going to modernize our M&E system, and so that Ghanaians, the public itself, would have a say in evaluating the performance of the government. And then NDPC itself will begin, we are building our capacity to do economic and employment impact assessment of all major government projects and sectoral policies. So we know direct employment, indirect employment, induced employment. This is done in other places, but we don't do that. And lastly, since the IMF program is on everybody's lips, perhaps I should touch on that. When we did the 40-year National Development Plan, we're very much concerned about that, the recurrent resort to IMF support. And so we looked at various budgets, we examined them, and something very funny came up. It turned out that every new government, starting from 1966, that came into office, blamed the previous government for bad management, excess deficits, and so forth and so on. But by the time they left office, they were doing exactly the same thing. This was occurring consistently, even under the Fourth Republic. And so we came up with 4 steps. Unfortunately, they haven't been followed, but we will try and restore them in the next long-term national development plan. The first step is stabilization, which is what the IMF was set up for. Their mandate is stabilization and nothing more. But next to stabilization is recovery. After you stabilize the economy, it must begin to grow. And there are indicators. We have a whole set of indicators for that. And then once it begins to grow, we have what is known as the expansion phase. The economy must grow faster than it did before. And then we have transformation, which is increase in productivity. This obviously is a very tall order, but it's doable. To use an expression, which could mean 2 things at the same time. It means we have traveled very far. It could also mean that we are yet to travel further ahead of us. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that together we put our brains together and work. Thanks.
We then work out like that. Who needs to go to the gym? I mean, that was just awesome. Ghana Dance Ensemble, National Theatre. That dance is from the Upper East region. It's called Wongo, and it's a social dance, very vigorous and very well executed. We're live on GTV. We're live on NDPC's Facebook page. We're live on Think Media Online's Facebook page. And it's now time for us to hear from our keynote speaker, and he's in the person of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of Ghana, to address us and officially launch the Ghana Infrastructure Plan. That's right. So welcome the President.
Thank you. Kindly be seated. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just 2 comments before I inflict my prepared speech on you. And the first is about 1, prioritization, and 2, allocating resources to what your actual priorities are. When we launched the big push, somebody asked, but where are you going to get money to finance the big push? $10 billion over 5 years. And yet this year we started by allocating almost 14 billion. And next year, the Minister of Finance has promised to allocate 30 billion to the big push. And this has succeeded by just reallocating resources from areas that we had gotten used to just allocating the resources, not spending them efficiently. And there were 2 things that we did when we came into government. We amended the Public Financial Management Act, and we introduced 2 things that would improve fiscal discipline. And the first was replacing the Fiscal Responsibility Act with the amendment of 2025, in which we made 2 important things. One, that will aim for a primary surplus, a surplus on the primary balance on commitment basis of 1.5% per annum. And then 2, that we will cap our debt ceiling at 45% of GDP by 2034, I think. And just introducing that fiscal discipline, also establishing a Fiscal Responsibility Council that will penalize any infractions of the amendment, the PFMA amendment. And then also giving the minister the authority to issue commencement for any commitment that any MDA was going to do. And suddenly it creates additional resources that we are able to put into development of infrastructure, but also it's important to cut the perennial waste associated with government expenditure. And that's why I want to thank the Chief Justice. We had a meeting only a few days in my office, and then he has agreed to set up specialized courts to deal with the Auditor General's report so that we can fast track. We can fast track the way to Nsawam for people who misappropriate government resources. And one example is exactly what Nimoy spoke about, that the staff of the hospital attended the person's funeral, and after that continued paying him for 26 months after attending his funeral. I mean, how is that possible? You know, so we need to take these seriously, and I believe that it will provide us with the resources. Can you imagine that with the kind of infrastructure we're doing, we are out of the international capital market. We're not borrowing $1 single from outside for the Big Push program. And so somebody asked me, says, oh, so when are you going to return to the international capital market? I said, oh, we're not in a hurry at all, because I never knew that you could survive without going to borrow for infrastructure. So far, we're doing good, and we'll continue to keep our foot on the pedal. His Lordship, the Acting Chief Justice Bafoboni, Chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, who just gave us a very beautiful, comprehensive overview of the Ghana Infrastructure Plan, Dr. Nimwe Thompson. It's not Nimoy. A lot of you say Nimoy. It's Nimwe Thompson. The Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Audrey Smoke Amwa. The Deputy Minister for Finance, Ministers of State and senior government officials here present, members of the diplomatic corps. I can see the Chinese ambassador. I was with him in Beijing just a few days ago. Members of the National Development Planning Commission, heads of our security services, CEOs of public sector institutions, development partners, civil society organizations, and private sector organizations, friends from the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today we gather not just for a launch, but to rekindle a vision, a journey that started over a decade ago when I had the honor as president to initiate the development of a long-term infrastructure plan for our beloved country. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan stands as a bold, forward-looking national blueprint, one that lays the foundation for building a resilient, inclusive, and future-ready Ghana. It defines the framework of our collective ambition, a 30-year strategic plan that guides how we design, fund, and implement infrastructure to improve lives and to support growth. But as we look ahead, we must also look back. For every renewal starts with reflection. 60 years ago, as the chairman of the NDPC told you, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah unveiled Ghana's first comprehensive development blueprint, which was the 7-year development plan and was supposed to take us from 1963 to 1970. He recognized that infrastructure was the foundation of a modern, industrialized, and self-reliant nation. He built roads, railways, schools, and energy systems to connect our people and unlock Ghana's productive potential. That vision was bold, it was patriotic and transformative, and it remains timeless even today. Yet 60 years on, we must humbly ask ourselves, how far have we progressed in fulfilling it? The 2024 National Annual Progress Report by the NDPC revealed over 70 billion in cost overruns across 18,000 capital projects, with many delayed or abandoned. This sobering statistics reflects a painful truth that despite our ambition, our infrastructure delivery has often been fragmented, politicized, and inefficient. We inherited Nkrumah, but we have yet still. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan makes a strategic reset. This new approach aligns our infrastructure development with our government's big push agenda, the African Union's Agenda 2063, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The Ghana Infrastructure Plan introduces spatial planning models that promote balanced regional development and equitable access to opportunities. And this is what Professor Nimo was talking about, that you cannot, Doctor, I promoted you to Professor, sorry, GTEC will come after you if I don't correct it. You cannot progress as a nation when you have geographical imbalance in economic development. And so setting up SADA as a special vehicle to accelerate development of the North was strategic. Unfortunately, a new government comes, shuts down SADA, and creates 3 broad development authorities, Coastal, Middle Belt, Northern, which really have done nothing, absolutely no impact. And so we must stop that geographical imbalance, because every child finishing senior high school in the North, after a certain point in time, no economic opportunities, no employment opportunities, everybody is headed towards Accra. And that's what he said. It just shows graphically what the imbalance is. Every industry is in Accra. All foreign direct investment is coming into Accra. Incentives that have been given to rebalance development have not been very effective. And we must find a way of making them more effective. And that's why we are suggesting an agro-industrial park in the northern part of the country, where we redirect some of the foreign investors who want to invest and give them the necessary incentives instead of settling in Accra to move up to the north to create jobs so that the young people can have opportunities there and not drift down to the south. The next is to develop multi-sectoral linkages to ensure infrastructure support, to ensure that infrastructure supports agriculture, industry, education, and health. To develop legal and institutional reforms that enhance continuity across governments, ending the cycle of project abandonment. That's after any government leaves, successive governments don't want to continue the projects that they started so that they can begin their own projects. Yesterday, I went to Western Region, and 2 of the projects I visited were projects that were advanced under the previous government. And so I went to assure the people of the Western Region that, look, we're going to continue and finish these projects so that we can properly utilize taxpayers' money. Our goal is straightforward, yet transformative, to move from scattered, politically motivated projects to unified, long-term investments that generate jobs, unlock value, and foster prosperity. This government's Big Push initiative is the first installment of this program. It operationalizes the Ghana Infrastructure Plan through deliberate high-impact investments that will, 1, complete abandoned and delayed projects in accordance with Article 35, Clause 7 of the 1992 Constitution, which mandates every government to continue and execute projects and programs that were commenced by previous governments. This is just what I was talking about. To revitalize the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, that's GIF, to finance projects that are self-sustaining and commercially viable. To generate thousands of quality jobs for young people through public works and local contracting. To strengthen institutional capacity for project preparation, monitoring, and evaluation. The big push is not about spending more, it is about spending wisely. Every CD must be guided by the Ghana Infrastructure Plan's priority program, ensuring value for money, regional balance, and long-term impact. To build better, we must govern better. Infrastructure governance, the systems, laws, and institutions that determine how projects are conceived, financed, and executed must be strengthened. Good governance guarantees that projects are selected on merit, carried out transparently, and are maintained across political transitions. When infrastructure governance is weak, countries lose billions. When it is robust, every project acts as a driver for growth. We must therefore depoliticize infrastructure so that roads, bridges, and hospitals will serve as symbols of national progress and not partisan rivalry. Allow me to highlight these three strategic initiatives that exemplify this new approach. One, the Green Digital City, which I announced last year, and I re-emphasized again during my trip to China. It's a 20-year transformation hub spanning the Greater Accra, Volta, and Eastern regions. It will combine sustainable urban design, renewable energy, and digital innovation to attract global investors and talents. The expansion of the water systems in Ho, Tamale, Sogakope, and Hohoi to ensure clean and fair access to water. The strategic road and transport corridors to enhance national connectivity, boost trade, and ease urban congestion. These projects are not isolated interventions. They are interconnected investments within a unified national framework. And each of them helps to achieve spatial equity, support industrial growth, and encourage climate-smart development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Ghana Infrastructure Plan is more than a policy document. It is a national covenant. It requires all of us across the political divide, public institutions, civil society organizations, and generations to dedicate ourselves to a shared vision of progress. I therefore call on First Parliament to enact the enabling laws, enforce fiscal discipline, and oversee to safeguard this vision. I urge the ministries, departments, and agencies to align their sector plans with the Ghana Infrastructure Plan and ensure continuity in project delivery.
major stations and minor stations as well. The number we have there. And so what we did, currently, if we want to do railway, we pick, let's say, Eastern Railway line, then we try to fund it, and we are not unable to do so. So we have put all of them together, estimated the entire network, the rolling stock that is needed, the locomotive, everything that is needed. Then we have them because it becomes advantageous to have these things manufactured in the country. So you can see over the next 20 years, we need as many as almost 1,000 coaches, almost 1,000 coaches, because the lifespan of a coach is about 5 years. So within a 20-year period, a coach will be replaced about 4 times. So we have built all these things down. We use global indicators. These are all available in world development indicators. We drill them down, and based on population, the land, then the land size plus the economic aspiration. So the question is, all these things are now going to be manufactured in the country. It's not just, of course, we don't have the full technology, so we shall do what developed countries did. Japan relied on technology from Netherlands to build its first railway, and today Japan operates one of the finest rail networks. The same applies to Korea. Korea partnered with France, and then they had to put up the high-speed railway network, where they agreed that 25% of the rolling stock is first manufactured in France, and then the remaining 75% of the rolling stock are manufactured in Korea. In fact, this was 1994. Since then, subsequent, all the rolling stock are now being manufactured in Korea. The same applies to India. Recently, this is just 3 months ago, India signed an agreement with Spain. They said that, look, build 16 airplanes in Spain of the highest standard and come and build a factory in India and then manufacture the rest. This is the strategy. This is a strategy that we are going to use. And this strategy ensures that every contract becomes not just a purchase, but an investment in local capacity and future independence. This is the model we have adopted in the plan to partner with the world, learn from the best, and build the rest right here in Ghana with Ghanaian hands, Ghanaian engineers, and Ghanaian pride. So we have the Accra, the suburban network, Kumasi, Tamale, Secondary Takoradi, the network, the dual carriageway. So you can see a typical railway track infrastructure. Basically, everything you see here are locally made, are available locally. The ballast, the subgrade, the base material, the slippers, the rail. Yes, the rail can be also be manufactured here because this country has vast deposits of iron ore, and from iron ore we get steel. We get steel where we have enough iron ore that will go around the world many times. So this is, fortunately, we have Ghana Integrated and Iron and Steel Development Corporation that is already working on this. And we are on call. So by the time the factories are built up, by the time GISDEC is fully on ground, all this will really fit in. So you can see the ballast are basically materials that are available. Almost the entire track infrastructure is available. I mean, the problem is whenever we want to build railway, we always go around looking for foreign currency, when in natural fact, all the materials are locally available. So you can see straight from there, the granite, the clay, the laterite, limestone, iron ore, bauxite. So Ghana has them all in abundance. We are not a poor nation waiting to be built. We are a rich nation waiting to awaken. The future of our railways, roads, bridges, housing, and industries lies not in our hands or in the world beneath us. So these are the typical, this is just mining overburden. These are basically, when you go to the mining areas, you see these are these over there. They are useful materials as subgrade or even information for railway and also for road. So I'm coming to the iron ore thing, which is very important because steel is the major component of infrastructure development. And I told you earlier on that we have we have the company that is driving this agenda. So normally you see iron ore. Well, we haven't started exporting iron ore yet, but we export bauxite and manganese, which is just about $2 for X works. And you can see on the last column, if we get 300 tons, metric tons, we just $2 per 300, you get just $600 down there on the bottom right. But the moment you start adding value, you turn them to steel sheets and iron rods and the I sections and railway sections and pylons and even fridge. You can see that the value appreciates, and even car, automobile, and bulldozers, D8, D10. You can see. Look at the final stream right column. These are the same amount of material. All we need is just power and technology and a workforce. So $600 now increases as you add value. And you can increase the same amount of iron ore, you can get as much as $1.8 million. I mean, this is transformation of 3,000 times. And this is money that gets into our pocket. And from down here to the top there, a lot of jobs are created. This is the approach that are being going to be used. And in between, you have all the materials that we need. I mean, this building currently is not caving on us because of the steel that we have on top there. And you can never do anything infrastructure without steel. So that's the approach. And we have, so creating wealth from what we have. Consider the wealth generated when iron ore is transformed. So I've talked about it before, the fact that the wealth is created many times. You see, you get you do your steel smelter and you get your steel, but you know, there are useful waste materials. Very useful, it's called steel slag. Currently, Gasem imports slag. They mix with their cement, and then they sell. They import slag. Slag is a very, very useful raw material for making cement. It's also useful for road construction. It's also useful for making blocks. It's useful for stabilizing soil. And yet, we get it as a waste product that becomes a very important raw material for infrastructure delivery. I mean, this is moving to aluminum. The same applies to aluminum. When GIDEC, Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation, is also working on that. And once you get your aluminum, the waste is called red mud or bauxite residue. Bauxite residue is also very important for building. It's because it contains clay, and clay is very used for the building. So you can use bauxite residue for this beautiful clay that we see here. And so really nothing gets, or nothing is thrown away. And when we start to industrialize, you get all the materials that become useful for development. So straight away, yes, we can do that to get a nice railway system that we have based on efficiency, reliability, connectivity, affordability, and then safety. So you can see straight away that we have aggregated all the components of the railway system, from track infrastructure to the station or the terminals, terminal stations, workshops, signals and telecom, rolling stock, design, supervision, training, and education. And when you look at the weights of the component, track infrastructure obviously is very, very expensive. So, but 90% is currently based on local expenditures. So you do all that and realize that we can build the entire railway system, almost 9,000 kilometers, with just 80% local currency or cities. So what are we waiting for? And that is a message we want to send here. The same applies to the road sector as well. 171,000 kilometers of road. We shouldn't forget that we are increasing in population. The population is supposed to double around the next 30 years. So we plan to have a lot of roads. In fact, all regional capitals are supposed to be connected by road network. And so just to reduce the rampant accident in the power sector is the same. These are the power needs of the country over the next few years. Valco, GIDEC, that's the company driving the aluminum industry. They need 700 megawatts alone for Valco and its expansion. Steel is about 200, and the total, we've added everything, including households, electric vehicles, electric railway, special economic zone, everything, data centers, ports and logistics, about 6,000 megawatts. Where are we going to get this from? And because we have already exhausted our hydropower capacity, and then we have also, we don't have much to do, we don't have much gas. So we have to go nuclear. Nuclear is very, very important. Nuclear can be put at various parts of the country. And that is, in front there, you saw a typical nuclear power model. You may have to have a look at it. Nuclear Power Ghana is working on this. And they can easily satisfy that the same strategy we're going to use for the railway, we break them down, but they are built over time in phases, so that we reduce fixed cost elements. And so that's the model on the nuclear thing. That's the model on Exeltium. Exeltium is a funding model that France used. France, what they did was that once they got off-takers for the power, they got, so AGI is here, they got off-takers. AGI will say, okay, fine, I need 100 megawatts, I need 20, I need 60, I need 80, I need 200. They're all aggregated. He signed an undertaking, he may even made a small commitment, and that is enough. Funding is never a problem once off-takers are guaranteed. And there are many, many use. So because we plan, of course, Nuclear Power Ghana has various models, the conventional system and then the small modular system, that is the American model. They can all be done simultaneously. The SMR can be put at various parts of the country, the conventional normally around water bodies. If we are to do 4,800 megawatts, just as the Baraka plant was done in the Emirates. This is the amount of jobs that were created. They used 2 million cubic meters of concrete, 250,000 tons of steel, 1,600 kilometers of cables, and they spent 63 million man hours of labor. 17,000 construction staff were at the site, and more than 1,500 local companies were engaged. 1,500, because they spent 30 billion on that. And you can see that all the works, once you do that and then you network the businesses, you don't really need all the money. You go and debit and credit businesses. And that is the strategy that is going to be used. So we have many businesses in tile, aluminum, paint, several businesses. Of course, we are not leaving solar. Solar is also easy to do because several houses are going to be constructed. If every house puts on 20 panels of 500 watts. It's enough to give, and we have 1 million houses. We are now to generate 10,000 megawatts of solar panel. I mean, this is about 10 times Akosombo. Akosombo is just about 1,000, 10 times Akosombo, and this is solar energy alone. So they are about strategies. Of course, there are also other funding instruments. We use bonds, infrastructure bonds. Of course, we're going through a very painful DDEP, but we have to build up confidence. You know, the Ethiopia, the Grand Renaissance Hydropower Dam, the Africa's largest dam. It was inaugurated last month. And it was built by Ethiopians themselves. They raised $5 billion to build a dam. And we can do that too. We can also use land assets. All the Ghana holds vast public lands. We can also acquire private lands as well, but most of them lie on use. You see, the issue about land is that land, when there's no infrastructure there, that don't cost much. It doesn't cost much, but once infrastructure passes through there, the values appreciate. So the state can use executive instrument and acquire several pieces of land because they are going to build the infrastructure and they know that the land will appreciate in value. That is what is termed as land benefit capture. And it's also used a lot in several countries. So to aggregate all that, we can get the Land Asset Corporation to strategically manage, lease, and monetize or lease these lands to finance national development without borrowing. So AGI may need this, and they just go to this corporation and they get the land that they need. Diasporan bonds are also fine. Of course, the diasporans will not just come and put their money in there. There must be good bond governance. And of course, they also want to have a stake in the housing. And most diasporans I speak to, they want to come back. So they don't want to come and get into situations where their conditions are worse than where they were. So we have to raise the stakes. We have to build quality structures, and they will put their money in there. Infrastructure reserve is a very innovative idea as well. It's an initiative to transform public infrastructure projects into long-term capital assets. Through a network of infrastructure register and asset valuation system, the reserve will enable Ghana to track, preserve, and leverage the wealth embedded in port, roads, rail, power plants, water, and public buildings. The reserve can be used for attracting investors in bonds and promoting accountability. So we can talk a bit about the infrastructure reserve. Pension funds are also in there. Recently, we heard that the pension fund administrators want to invest overseas. Well, because we don't have any project that they can invest in. So this is the opportunity. PPE, of course, we will still rely on multilateral blended finance and then mutual credit transaction systems. That is very, very important. For me, if we have time, we would have talked about this. But it just works on the principle of MOMO. I've highlighted that where MOMO, money supply in the country is about 60 billion. Let's say MOMO is about 20 billion. But this MOMO results in volume of transaction of 3 trillion. And it's a transactions. It's a whole new discussion altogether we can discuss. E-roads are also, electronic roads are also very important. Of course, ECD, we'll get a new holding bank or establishment that will then support SMEs. Because Ghanaian SMEs, they are scattered. They are all trying to do their own thing that they are not able to do that. So we need this holding institution to network, research, provide off-takers and markets for them, etc., etc. We have the idea over here. And then, of course, yeah, we don't have much time, so I'm running through. Yeah, so of course, the green financing, the green financing, the Global Environmental Fund and Global Climate Fund, they earmark about 100 billion for climate-related issues. Well, they don't give all, they give about 70 billion, which is fine if we're able to get 1 billion every year out of the 70 billion. Unfortunately, when you go to the platform, you see that Ghanaian firms are not there. Indians are taking 2 billion. Ghanaian firm, my maximum I saw was about 56 million. So we have to get in there because we don't have projects. We don't have projects that will absorb all this money. So these are big projects that we have to undertake. Housing is a big thing. Everything relates to housing because a house, when you get a house, it attracts other package of services, roads, drainage, water, power, and generally all of us, the biggest thing we like, the biggest investment we like to do is housing. And housing is a symbol of security. It's a symbol of inheritance. It's a status symbol. That's why we want to invest in there. And once we generate, we commit ourselves to housing, we get money upfront to fund infrastructure as well. This is actually a Greater Kumasi Industrial City that we did at the World Bank and Ministry of Trade. And yeah, so we have identified all the housing units that must be done in this country. This was a projection. This was done in 2018, and we projected that in 10 years, they will be cruising. This is the number of housing who will be doing all over the country. At that time, we had 10 regions. We shall extend to 16 regions very soon. And the details are there. Okay. All right. So we had that. Then we zoomed into Eastern region. We found out the houses that must be done in every district, and the numbers are in the last column here. This is the typical industrial development map that we have. We put all of them into a map. Of course, we can't put all of them in the map, but this typical map contains several industries, more than, I can list over 1,000 industries. These are new industries, economic zones, tourism sites, etc. We only need entrepreneurs, we need businessmen, we need people. With people who want to work. Once we get onto the platform, probably next year, people can get in there. I'm sure there will be enough jobs and for anybody. You could see some numbers in there. Every single piece of dot there signifies an industry. And yeah, so there are smart cities in the petroleum hubs, aluminum refinery. We have furniture cities. We have farm. We have nuclear plants, etc., etc. So these are the jobs that are going to be created. Procurement is a big thing. Procurement, especially e-procurement, is a major big thing that must be taken into consideration. Yeah, because governments procurement is about, it's not just about transparency, but the fact that it really amplifies a value several times more. And of course, once we want to be a high-income country, we must also aim to ensure that the people, the workers also get better compensation. Otherwise, they cannot patronize. Okay, they cannot patronize the industries that are provided. So we say that there must be increased compensation, and you could see that without that, we can't even board the railway, and that is what we have in here. Of course, the president Mahama signed Ghana to the OECD Development Center. It's a very good thing. President Kufuor also continued. Unfortunately, the implementation has been lacking. We need a disciplined society, and then we need a state charter between the state, the citizens, and corporate Ghana. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. Many thanks to Engineer Charles Boache, Team Lead for the Ghana Infrastructure Plan, for the financing the Ghana Infrastructure Plan presentation. We really appreciate it. For vote of thanks, I'll call on the Acting Director General, NDPC, to do just that for us, Dr. Audrey Smoke Amwa, with the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure once again to say a few words of thanks to you. I would begin by thanking the Almighty God for life. I would also want to thank His Excellency, the President. It is said that walls have ears, and he agreed to launch the document for us. He indeed launched it. And this is the mark of a great leader who says that, come, follow me. He doesn't say, go, I will follow you. He said, and I quote, it is a national covenant, end of quote. So if we forget anything at all, let's remember that this document is a national covenant. I would want to thank the honorable ministers who are present with us today. You have demonstrated your commitment and the nation is grateful. Honorable members of parliament that came here this morning, we shudder when we mention long-term plans, but we know that you hold the key to legislation and we can count on you. The Deputy Minister for Local Government, the Head of Local Government Service, the Honorable MMDCs, every development happens in space when we are talking about infrastructure. And this space fall in one district or the other. Our prayer is that you'll be able to help us develop Ghana. We thank you for coming. Heads of the security services, we are enjoying peace and development thrives on peace. This is because of the work you do. We are grateful. Commissioners of the National Development Planning Commission, chaired by our own chairman, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, and staff of the commission, we are grateful. You put this together and then we have shared it with the public. Political parties here present, let's note that it is Ghana first. Members of the diplomatic corps, you've always been our support. We are grateful. Reps of the MDAs and other public institutions, we will rely on your outputs as our input to our work, and we thank you for coming. Our development partners, we cherish you. We can always call on you for support. We are grateful. Private sector organizations, civil society organizations, academia, think tanks, all others, we know that you have key roles to play and you will deliver just that for us. Want to thank the moderator. He steered the affairs so well. Thank you. To the resource person who made the presentation, we are grateful for the insights that you gave us. To the media, we owe you so much. We can count the numbers in the room, but we cannot count how many more people will be reached because of the work you are doing with us. Thank you so much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, particularly for those of us who have stayed to the end, please clap for yourselves. We wouldn't have had a program if you hadn't come. On behalf of the National Development Planning Commission, thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Acting DG of NDPC, for the vote of thanks. Thanks to Victor also for the sign language. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're done for the event. We have the QR code up there, so, and it's pleading, scan me, scan me, scan me. So just do what it says you should do, scan it. You will get the plan there. You can go into the fine details and then interrogate it. On behalf of the National Development Planning Commission, I'd like to say thank you so much for bringing yourselves to this point, and have a beautiful remainder of this beautiful Wednesday. Remember, the Ghana Infrastructure Plan is launched. It's the foundation of Ghana's long-term national development. Follow the NDPC across social media and check out their website as well. There's more information there. My name is Kafui Day. Enjoy your lunch. God bless. You're the man. Victor. OBK, please come to the stage.